I literally have the easy job. All I have to do is just like sit in the back cave and just talk a little bit.
No, you're like the play-by-play guy. I'm just like the color commentator who doesn't really know much. No. So the Super Bowl, right?
Oh yes.
I mean, it's my Patriots and it's the Seahawks, which are probably going to shellac them. But no, what's the line? 4.5 now?
Yeah, it's still 4.5, and I know that's the visceral reaction when we first see that after what we've experienced with the Seahawks. It is that first reaction to say, well, it's probably going to be pretty ugly.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I'll go into it like right off the bat. Is look at the weather. The weather that New England has played in their first two playoff games, Josh McDaniels was not able to have access to I'd probably say even more than half of his playbook had to be put on the back burner because the footing is such an issue in those conditions that he's not going to be able to do a lot of those stop and go routes and a lot of shift stuff. So if they've won 2 games with half a playbook or less, which is kind of the number I'm looking at, and then the fact that they did it in those conditions, and remember the last game against Denver, in most of the third and all of the fourth, Vrabel basically just said, we're just going to go 3 and out 5-6 times in a row because we don't want to risk a sack fumble. We don't want to risk a pick.
No turnovers. Yeah.
And so there's so many things that make New England look weak right now that are false narratives. And I think equally there's a lot of things that make Seattle look strong right now that are potentially false narratives. So we could be dealing with a real undervalued, overvalued situation. And it's very similar to the national championship game. And we talked about that in college.
The Miami game. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things you were talking about was around potentially folks that are undervalued in general. And who was it? Was it Butte? No, it's Travion Henderson.
Yeah.
So tell me, so he was kind of locked up for the last couple of games, right? He didn't do well from a props perspective, right? I can't remember precisely, but it wasn't. I don't think he did the expectation. And so, A, what are your thoughts on that? And B, what do you think is different?
Okay, so I part of this goes right back to weather, and I know there's last we checked on Betflow was like last weather update we did was about a day ago, like a 30% chance of rain right around there.
Got it. Yeah, what are you looking at? I can see. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
cloudy. It's cloudy. Yeah.
Okay. And not really too much of a concern right now as weather affecting this game the way it did for the last 2 Patriots games.
Right.
And so I kind of look at this from a standpoint of Mike Vrabel's trust in Ramondre Stevenson in both pass protection and ball security is just a 1,000 times
way better
beyond than a trust he has in Travion Henderson.
Right.
At that point, he's not worried about hitting a home run. He's just worried about not striking out at the plate or tripping on the way to first base.
Right.
And so so he's figuring, let's go with the vet. And I know Henderson has said multiple times that Ramondre Stevenson is basically a coach on the field for him. He's learning so much from him in such a short time.
I saw that. Yeah.
It's so encouraging. And I love Henderson. He's one of those he's one of those guys that he has the positive vibes. You don't really hear him talk too much, but when you do hear him talk, super positive,
optimistic,
super spiritual guy, but he doesn't give you the full Tebow. He just gives you
he does give you the full Tebow.
I love God and I'm grateful I'm here. And Drake May does that too.
Drake May does do it. They're very measured about it.
Yes.
I mean, measured and spiritual. Yeah.
It really is. It's so perfect. And I'm actually looking up the snap counts right now. I know last game for the carry wise for Henderson was 3 carries for 5 yards.
Just so little.
Yes, and it goes to show you that Vrabel was not messing around compared to Ramondre Stevenson getting 25 carries.
That's crazy.
But only 71 yards for Stevenson because he didn't have a long over 12. He was only averaging 2.8 per carry.
Right.
And so, long story short, for me to not ramble on Henderson, I'll put it in a nutshell as I read off the snap counts right here for the last couple of weeks. Last week's snap count against Denver was 60-4 for Stevenson to Henderson snap counts.
Okay, that's the Denver game. I was going to say, oh yeah, go ahead.
That was Denver, and then the Houston game was 40-25, and then the game before that was 40-26. So you see that Vrabel had that mindset that this is to punch our ticket to the Super Bowl. I'm not messing around. Right. But now that they're in the big game, I'm not too worried about the biggest knock on Henderson, which has been pass protection. That the defense knows that when he's on the field, it's a pro football focused stat that I don't have access to right now. But there's a couple of PFS stats that say that Henderson is one of the worst pass protecting running backs in the league right now, and it's understandable. That's a applied science. You got to put in your time.
You got to put in the work to figure out the pickups. Yeah,
we could spend hours going over why it's going to be a heavy passing attack for either team, and then that team could get a kick return and a pick six on the first 2 or 3 possessions and be up 14-0, and now they don't need to pass anymore. And so I always like to have that in the back of my mind to say, I never, especially in the Super Bowl, because coaches get scared. No matter how cool and calm they are, they get scared. I think even more so scared when they have a lead, especially a double-digit lead.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's pressure. There's pressure in having that lead, right? There's something to be said about a comeback.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, just the Atlanta Patriots game. I mean, there's something to be said. You can have an insane lead, but then magic happens, right? I mean, because it's just it's a game where there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of anxiety and stress, and that comes out in a lot of ways with good performance and poor performance, unexpected things, and so there's always that. That sort of film that goes across the Super Bowl.
Good call. I love that. The film. Yes.
The film. Yeah. That's probably a negative way to say it. There's
yes. You heard that here.
There's a
mist. And then what's his name? John for NFL Films. He comes in, no pun intended, with the film. He's like, in a mist. In the presence of a film, fell over the field for Super Bowl 60.
Oh man, I think a mist is better actually. But there's the, what do they say? The things that you can't predict, because there's extraordinary things that do happen in the Super Bowl because of the intensity, because of the anxiety, because of the good and bad stress that overtakes the entire organization, from the coaching staff all the way to the folks in the field. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's where people may do exceptional things and unexpected things. So
definitely. And you know what? To talk about Betflow too, with all the options that we have to comb through for certain trends, whether it's based on weather or based on matchups or whatever it is, it's the perfect opportunity to introduce the concept of dependable production, meaning production that can occur with a big lead, or production that can occur when you're trailing, when the other team has a big lead. And a perfect example is passing yards versus receiver reception. So So if you were to think about either quarterback, like maybe I want to take May or Darnold to go over their passing yards, and they're in the like mid 220s respectively. So that is not independent of how the game script goes. If the game script goes a certain way, there might never be a single reason for Drake May or Sam Darnold to throw over 200 yards.
Yeah.
But on the receiver reception side, Hunter Henry, who I believe right now, I think he's over under 3.5 catches.
Let me see. I think so. Yeah.
There could be any drive of this game where Hunter Henry could get 2 or 3 receptions on one drive.
Yep.
Regardless of whether they're up 10 or down 10.
Right.
And so you got to be careful in this type of game, especially knowing in the second half that neither coach would hesitate a second to do something that's ugly, something that's technically ugly in the eyes of the fans.
Win. Right.
Yes. And especially in the eyes of bettors. And I would say, if we look back, I've actually got the box score up right now because Seahawks is the defense that we most fear. I think most people would agree. Nothing against New England's defense, but if we're going to focus on fear of a defense, we'd probably start with Seattle.
Correct.
And so my first feeling for any vaunted defense that's coming off a 2-week rest, whether it's a bye week in the regular season or whether it's one of those weird like Monday to Thursday situations where it's like a mini bye week or a Super Bowl break, I always go to tackle. No matter how big, strong, and fast the defense is, the speed of the game is the speed of the game. And it might take them one drive to reacclimate. Maybe it takes them a quarter to reacclimate to that speed. Sometimes it takes a half. Sometimes it doesn't come back. And so last week, the Rams only ran the ball, and I've really mad at several coaches over this course of these playoffs, but I'm very upset with McVay and Sean Payton. No offense, Broncos fans or Rams fans, but they got what they deserved because they just refused to run the ball consistently. And we'll never know if Matt Stafford had a broken finger or not, or if it's just a sprain. I mean, heck, he won a Super Bowl on a bad finger, but still, bottom line is 22 carries, which isn't, I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at. It's not a small number, but 22 carries for the running backs of the Rams against the Seahawks. And they ran on those 22 carries 114 yards at 5.2 yards per carry. And here's the big thing. It wasn't skewed by a big run. The longest run in that game was a 19-yard run by Corum. So that means that 5.2 yards per carry that the Rams ran against Seattle, that's legit. That's a legit 5.2.
Every time.
And so if LA, just coming off the game they played, or excuse me, Seattle, showing up to that game with no issues of rust, and they were giving up 5.2 yards per carry on 22.
That's super interesting. Go ahead. Yes.
Well, and you know what? I want to hear your thoughts on that. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I'm just going to do the run. I mean, sure. I mean, it makes sense, right? So you're saying that there's not it really truly was a little bit over 5 per carry. And that's without rust, as you said, without any sort of getting more acclimated to jumping off and getting those tackles done. I think that it's just going to be something that the Patriots pressure test in the first 2 to 3 plays. Give it to Ramondre and have him punch through and see how it goes.
Yes, that's a great way to put it, and I think Vrabel is the guy for that.
Right.
I think Vrabel looks at that and basically says, we're not going to bail out any team, whether it's the Super Bowl or whether it's the preseason. We're not going to bail out any team just trying to play modern football, because that's what most teams do nowadays. That's why McVay is sitting at home on his couch right now, and Peyton and all the rest of them.
Yeah,
because they tried to win with modern football.
Yeah.
I think Vrabel is the guy out of both of these coaches to say, I'll run Ramondre 25 times again like you did last week.
Whatever it takes to win. You know, I mean, also he comes from the perspective on sort of the defense sort of slant there, obviously.
Yes.
But no, I think I'm sure you're right. Based on what he did last week, he's going to poke at it. They're going to see how it goes. They're going to, capitalize on it. But it's a really interesting stat that I wouldn't have dug into, but it makes sense, right? If they were at their best, and yet they were still consistently leaking that many, yards per carry, that's not ideal, right? So
most definitely,
it's interesting.
And it makes you wonder too. And you had the perfect wonder pose too, like the thinker, it as exactly the pose I was doing when we both said that. It makes you wonder, okay, how far is Vrabel willing to go in the run game if it doesn't start off successfully? How far is he willing to test it, even with the slow start that of course McVay wasn't willing to do? And then I went back the week before when Seattle destroyed San Francisco. They had no Kittle. And let's face it, McCaffrey has been smoke and mirrors with all the success he's had this year. So much of that is as a receiver, not as a runner. He had 1 or 2 big games as a runner.
I knew that.
Yeah. And I know
because I always have him. I always take him because I do rushing and receiving for him as a prop. And it always is the receiving that brings me over.
And I think that's the perfect thread to understand that if either one of us or anybody watching is thinking about having a little piece, a little sprinkle on the Patriots run game, I think it's it's close to 100% of a guarantee for me anyway, that I'm not just going to take straight up rushing yards. I'm going to include the receiving yards with the combo.
I think so. Yeah.
Matter of fact, the numbers are so low right now on the over-unders right now for both just the straight up rushing yards for Ramondre Stevenson and Henderson. And then because those numbers are so undervalued, they're equally undervalued in the combo numbers for the rushing receiving yards combined. So I'll read them off. Tell me how crazy it sounds. For a guy like Stevenson, who just carried the ball 25 times last week, and whether it was snowing or not, because the first half was actually pretty beautiful in Denver. But Ramondre Stevenson carried it 25 times last week, and he's over-under rushing yards right now. You know what? If you haven't looked at it in a couple days, you want to take a guess of what it should be based on the fact that he was such a bell cow last week. Oh, you've already seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. I haven't.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, you have. Okay. What would I could probably give you an honest number myself, even though I've already seen it.
You do it. You tell me.
If knowing Stevenson the way I do,
that's cheating. I'm cheating a little bit.
We both know his MO. He's a power guy, but he can be shifty. He has some acceleration.
Yeah, he has some moves. Yeah, he's mostly powering into the go ahead. The end zone.
Oh, of course. And knowing the fact that he did carry it 25 times, and that Henderson, in theory, cannot pass protect, and that's why his snaps are down and his carries are down. I would say for a guy that's going to get that much attention on offense, or excuse me, that many touches, especially as a runner, and you're going up against a team, regardless if it's the 85 Bears defense or the 2000 Ravens, you're still going up against a team with Super Bowl pressure that hasn't hit a real moving target in 2 weeks by the time the game starts. I would say that number should at least be in the low 60s.
Yeah, I was going to say 60. I was going to say 60. Yeah.
Me too. 100%. Yeah. That number makes sense to me. Right now, Ramondre Stevenson,
I can't remember. Under 40 or something?
49.5.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And that makes no sense.
If you put yourself either in the shoes of being the algorithm for a sports book, spitting out that number, or somebody monitoring the algorithm, you look and say, why aren't we getting more over money? That's the funny part about this.
I mean, I think they're valuing the defense so heavily that they're going to stop every run. And I think that is an inch. I will put something on that, because I feel like that's not quite a done deal, a known thing, right? I don't think you contain that much. Right, I would say sure if he's at 55 or whatever, maybe, but that's pretty significant off. And then if you start to add in, if you want to do receiving and rushing, that's not a bad one either, because I think there's going to be a lot of those short passes to these guys.
Oh yeah, see, I'm having a blast right now because this is the voice in my head every day for whatever I'm researching, and then going on Betflow always makes that voice like happy, like like when somebody's tone of voice changes when they see their dog or their cat, and they're like, oh my gosh, like here's my favorite person in the world or whatever. And you see your kids. I didn't mean to leave out kids, of course.
Those two.
Dogs and cats are so they are our kids, and so when you have that change in the tone of your voice where it's like, ooh, we're going on Betflow, it's okay, let's go, and that's like the old, when you're a kid, like we're going to McDonald's, like the old Eddie Murphy,
give me that Happy Meal.
Yeah, exactly. So 49.5 for Stevenson for rushing yards over under. Now the books, the algorithms got this one right, because they were fearful of over money. They're adding 28 yards to that if you want to include receiving yards. So that goes from 49.5 to 77.5.
That's tough one. That's a tough one. I don't know if I would. I don't know. That's a hard one.
My thought when I see something that's that much of a discrepancy or that much of a gap, I automatically go to see what's his receptions number. What are they expecting? What are the algorithms expecting for his receptions? And they've got his over under for receptions now at 3.5. So at over under 3.5.
What do you say? You have to get 10 yards per reception to make that viable?
Basically, in that range, you want to have him averaging near that 9-10 mark.
I don't know.
So hopefully one big play.
One big long one, yeah.
Right. And in the playoffs, he's got, starting with the Chargers game, which I honestly, that seems like it was a year ago, that game against the Chargers. 4 targets against the Chargers. He had a big one, a 48-yarder, which skews the numbers because that's recent enough. So his numbers would probably be much lower if it wasn't for that big 48-yarder. He had 3 catches on 4 targets for 75 yards receiving against the Chargers. Another 4 targets against Houston and 4 catches, but only 11 yards on those 4 catches. And
I think it's going to be more like that. Yeah.
And so I'll put a bow on it because I think I've been thinking about the running back situation so much.
Oh my gosh.
All the games ended. I'll say one last thing on Ramondre Stevenson, and then I want to kind of hear your thoughts so we could both kind of say,
our sort of wrap up.
What would be our biggest takeaway for either a pick or a lean or a secret weapon? And so I'll close by saying this is that with Stevenson, his rushing yards number is so low at 49.5 that if he were, matter of fact, let's look at his long rush in the playoffs. He has a long rush of 20. He had a long of 13 against LA, a long of 20 against Houston, and a long of 12 against Denver. In the regular season, Stevenson, his longest run was actually their last game of the regular season. He had a 56-yard run. And so think about if you had Ramondre Stevenson over 49.5 rushing yards and he breaks off a 56-yarder on the first couple of drives. You're thinking to yourself, first you do the prayer, like don't go backwards prayer, like please don't go backwards, because every bettor is always scared even when they get something too early and it's like, man, I hope I get paid on this before he goes backwards.
Right.
But my thought is Seattle could play an amazing defensive game for 3.5 quarters in a Super Bowl and still give up a big run.
Of course.
And still win the game, but give up a 30, 40-yarder to either Stevenson or Henderson. And so I would not be scared of including the extra 28, 29 yards to have exposure on Stevenson as a receiver as well, just in case the run's not working and he ends up catching like 8 passes. It's like we said about the contingency plans earlier. But going into our takeaways here, I have to say the most undervalued player by far to me still, TreVeyon Henderson.
Henderson.
It's 18.5 yards over under for rushing, and they're only adding 7 yards to his rushing and receiving combo, 25.5.
Wow.
I mean, he could get that on a bathroom break. At the time, he could get 26 yards. Yeah, exactly. So
great. Now it's going to be the halftime show. I'm going to think about that.
Oh yes, we've got that planned for everybody listening, everybody watching now. So I'm going to finally be quiet because I know
it's fine.
So excited.
Try the Trend Blender and more with a 7-day free trial. Full info in the caption.